Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the playoff action this week. 4 games. It's been light work, Dave. Light
Yeah,
work,
easy,
which
easy.
is good job. You got football to go to. I need to see if my team can become B Tech champions of England. So we
B-Tech.
need, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I like it. Yes. Well, I mean, it's. Have you bought your Euro yet?
Not yet, not yet. We're waiting for our points deduction next year first. Be at least 6. Hopefully it runs at the same speed as
We're not going to get into a conversation about the need for financial propriety and rules governing the financial sustainability of
well,
it
I see they're thinking of bringing a salary cap in, Dave. There we go. Team
into the
team
Premier League.
payments cap, I prefer, but
Yeah,
yeah,
indeed. Yeah,
we'll see
indeed.
if they do that.
Uh,
I think it'd be a good thing, but I'm sure people will moan about it. I'm sure your owners will moan about it as well because that's the
yeah,
future of it. Anyway, let's talk
I don't think they
basketball.
care. They're too busy.
Yeah,
Too busy.
digging it out the ground, the money, aren't they? That's
Well, I think it's more brutalizing, homosexuals and stuff like
the.
that. There you go.
Well, I didn't know we were going to start there, Dave.
So
Shall we talk some basketball?
yeah, I guess yeah.
Let us start with a game I'm sure you enjoyed, Dave, on Friday night. Caledonia Gladiators 78, Newcastle Eagles 97. Quade Green back into the starting lineup. Pharaoh Ali Hodgic was back, although he only played a few minutes at the end. Whitfield into the starters, Dave. I think you called for that. I'm not sure you called
Yeah.
for Johnson off the bench, though.
I actually indicated that Austin would be better coming off the bench, but I think they've kind of figured out that Austin needs to play
Hmm.
and kind of impact the game with his energy. He's not comfortable. I think he maybe over presses coming off the bench. Doesn't play quite as many minutes. He tried that in Europe, and the rest of the team did all right, but he struggled.
Hmm.
So Johnson,
Johnson
if it's
certainly didn't
anybody,
struggle coming off the
no, if
bench
it's going to be
in
anybody. I
this
mean,
one.
Johnson said afterwards, he came off the bench in Germany.
Yeah,
And
it's only the
Johnson,
second time in his British
yeah, but
Basketball League career he's been off the
it's rare,
bench.
I mean, normally if you sign an
Mm,
American guard, they're starters,
mm,
but now we've got 6 Americans, so
mm,
that's changing a little bit. There's far more Americans coming off the bench. In reality, Johnson's game is actually suited to being kind of a sixth man because he is a scorer first
mm,
and foremost, as opposed to a setup guy. Um, and but they did it for defensive purposes, not for offensive purposes. They did it because they wanted Whitfield to guard Green.
mm,
Whitfield guards Green. That means one of your guards, if you start on all three, has to guard Poliza.
mm,
And that's a tough matchup for either um, uh, McGill or Johnson.
mm,
So what they did was, they brought Johnson off the bench because it's probably hardest for him with his size. They were able to stick Austin on Poliza and McGill on Whelan. And basically, I mean, maybe they've been playing rope a dope in the last 2 games where Green had absolutely filleted them for like 30
mm.
points in each game. And, much to my kind of continuing and ongoing dismay in those games, they didn't form any form of scheme to do it. But the reality is that Whitfield's a serious basketball player. He's not the most talented basketball player. He's not the most athletic basketball player, but he does all the little things that you need to do.
Mm.
And as a group, he's one of those guys who makes a team better when he's playing. I think they have been better when he's had consistent minutes at the three. So that did kind of help. But I mean, the other side to that, of course, is that all the stuff that happened with Caledonia last week, where Green had come off the bench in
Yeah,
Bristol,
yeah,
and Bothwell had played very well, and suddenly Bothwell's back on the bench.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and it's not, you don't want that type of uncertainty going into playoff game.
No, no,
You
no.
really don't. And it did seem to me that um, the whole, from watching from afar, watching the TV, the whole energy of the game was
Was
all about
off.
Newcastle's energy.
That was it was the juxtaposition of the two as well because Newcastle looked ready for it.
Yeah,
Their energy was high, and the juxtaposition of Caledonia, who seemed to be
well,
searching for
flat,
something.
just flat, and and to a certain degree, as I say, it's a bit rope-a-dope. Green's absolutely cut Newcastle to bits.
Mm,
But he's only been in the country not so long.
mm,
Moore, at the end of the day, Moore is a rookie,
mm,
and ultimately Defoe outplayed Moore in this game. and he's not a rookie.
He's certainly not.
Not, and Newcastle basically, whilst they did demonstrate their own flaws at times, they did the things that they need to do to stop Caledonia. And again, you know, I don't like praising myself,
Go on, Dave.
but
Do it for us. Do it
if
for
you
us.
insist, you know, that's why I took the view that it was a decent matchup for Newcastle.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you could guard Green, then the rest of the guys then have to create, and they become a little bit more stagnant. And Newcastle then have the quickness to, you know, they're still not a quick team, Caledonia. Green is obviously Quicksilver, but we don't know how good he is defensively because he's not really been tested yet. There's been enough games to watch. Whelan is solid, but you wouldn't describe him as kind of lightning. And then you're into the kind of the, Bothwell's a big guard. They can't stay in front of McGill and Johnson.
Yeah.
And then, so you add in the fact that, that advantage really, you know, Newcastle actually played better against a lot of the European teams where they had a quickness advantage.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And they did this season against the British Basketball League teams where they were, you know, they didn't because it actually helped them to play against slower paced teams because it meant that they weren't as exposed defensively as much, you know. So that's why that was a good matchup. And ultimately, you add in the fact that there's a little bit of dysfunction at Caledonia. You add in the fact that they turned the ball over a little bit as well, which allowed the Eagles to get out and run. Then I wouldn't say the matchup went as I thought it would, but it was giving Newcastle, I thought, the best chance out of all the other games that they had to play.
Well, Eagles went out to 10 early in the second quarter. Caledonia pulled it back to tied up at 33. Eagles back out to 10. Taj Green with 6 in a 10-0 run, 45-55 in the third quarter. It was really the beginning of the fourth. It's 61-67, and then Johnson led a run of 16 points to 3. Johnson had 9 of those 16, and it's 64-83.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, obviously, Newcastle gave, I think, Caledonia probably 8 points at the end of the first and the second quarter.
Yeah, I was watching that thinking of you, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there was actually that amount of contact. I was actually watching it back, but Bothwell sold it very well in the bottom line. If you agree, and you don't go anywhere near that, even given the opportunity. And then at the end, you know, and Newcastle struggled to close out quarters all season. And a lot of that is because they have their bench on during quarters, and their bench units are shaky. Because they tend to lose focus as to where they're going, who's going to be scoring the ball. And then the same at the end of the second quarter as well. But the starting units, you know, the starting unit kind of destroyed Caledonia both first and third quarters. And again, you know, it comes down to Defoe in the middle. Defoe is just utterly critical for them. I think Caledonia had 10 points in the first 8 minutes of the game when Darius was in the game. And then they had maybe 2 points in the first 5 minutes of the third quarter as well. You know, and it's not so you deal with the threat. The threat has primarily been Green and Moore in the screen and roll. And Green hasn't really shown that much willingness to throw it out to shooters. If you watch the games, he's either scoring with the floater or he's throwing it to Moore, you know. So how well can you defend that two-man game? And they had the two best defenders, Whitfield and Defoe, in the two-man game.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the difference. If that's Johnson and Green, Johnson and Taj Green, they're getting filleted.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's so much is about matchups as to who does what. And obviously, once you take a guy out of his rhythm, we've talked about it before, and that was Quade Green. Once you take him out of his rhythm, it's hard to find it again.
Yeah.
You're not comfortable, and you're not comfortable in the game. And then Newcastle's quickness took over, as you say, and towards the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. They had a line that Newcastle put. I mean, they still have empty possessions. And anybody who wants to know my real views on this game, just go and listen to Jordan Taylor's commentary, because he basically said everything I was thinking whilst I was thinking it. You know, you can't end up with a minute and a half to go in the third quarter and you're up by 10 on the road in a playoff game. Throwing the ball, running a Larios and Will Neighbour screen and roll on the wing, and throwing the ball into Will Neighbour in the post guarded by Prince Onwas. You know, Will Neighbour hasn't scored for about a month, and Prince Onwas is the best defender on the Rocks team, on the Gladiators team. You know, that's a dead possession that cannot happen. And they had a few of them with that lineup in the game, and Neighbour didn't start the fourth quarter. It wasn't just Neighbour; it's just where the ball is, who's got the basket time, you know.
Yeah.
And so they went a bit quiet, but they were because of the rest that the starters got when he came back with his starters with Ward Hibbett playing instead of Taj Green, because Taj Green is shaky defensively against Caledonia because you need to be in the right place all the time, and he isn't in the right place all the time. That's when they were able to kind of explode away. So yeah, it was weird. What do you think of the unsportsmanlike foul?
I'm trying to remember it
On
now.
Wack Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was my view. It was kind of like, I mean, just remembering, of course, that Onwas had previously headbutted Johnson this season.
Yeah.
So maybe the refs had thought of that. You know, he kind of had a large swing down on the ball. I think the question is whether that swing is excessive, and JT didn't think it was because he didn't hit him on the head.
Yeah.
Um,
It was one of them where I could, because I think it was Chris Dodds on the wing who called it
yeah,
rather than whoever was on the baseline.
yeah.
And I think from that angle, it probably looked worse than it did from the baseline angle. Was
Well,
my take.
it was one of those ones where you'd like the opportunity to go and have a look at it again in the video.
Yes. Yeah.
To see exactly where the contact was and see exactly what the wind up was and exactly what do they call it in the NBA? They call it, you know, what's the wind up? What's the follow through? Is it excessive? Where's the contact made? That type of thing. You don't get to see it in real life, do you? So yeah.
Or you call the foul and then you have a conversation with the guy on the baseline, say what was
tough,
your
though,
view.
you know, it's very tough to do that. I know you meant. I don't like conversation. I think it's. If you think it's a foul, you call it. It's every other foul in the game, refs call the foul, blow the whistle, and call it.
Yeah.
I don't really like the big. I don't mind it if you're going to go and look at it on the screen.
Yeah.
But if you get a conversation about it, just like it seems to me, it confuses the whole.
Yeah, as I
thing.
say,
I know they're encouraged to do that.
I didn't think it was an unsportsmanlike foul, but I thought from the angle that Chris Dodds was at, it could well have looked like one.
Yeah. Well, as I say, the question is what's excessive. It was borderline. And then Newcastle got a couple of calls. I mean, they got a couple of kind of 3-shot calls, which were very close as well. But they kind of earned them in this game because their energy was so much greater than Caledonia's.
Bring back aggregate, Dave. You'd basically
not.
Through.
No, even though, well, I wouldn't have bet on that. You know, because what happened was we had interesting subplots, didn't we? Because Farah came on for the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And started, you know, throwing his weight around a little bit. Not unfairly, but just, you know, but basically, you know. So we've got that to look forward to.
Asserting his physicality.
Yes, and he wouldn't have played if that had been a point at that time. I don't think.
Yeah.
And so you've got that. Now you've got to think: is he going to play in the second? Is he going to play in the second game? And how's you know it's going to start? Is he going to come off the bench? Are they going to go to him? Will that change the way they play? Because Green's basically not played with Ali Hodzic.
No, he hasn't.
You know, so that's another thing to throw into the mix. Are they going to be up for the game? Primarily, you know, are they going to be up for the game? Because I don't think they were up for this game. Anything near what you need to be. No. So yeah, it was a good win for Newcastle. But I'm certainly not. I think it was probably 70% Newcastle and 30% Caledonia, maybe 60-40. You know, and even then in the fourth quarter, even then with 3 minutes to go, you're not thinking the game is done.
No. Whelan 20 points, 5 of 7 field goal shooting. Bothwell 11, Poliza 10. Green was 3 of 11 for 6 points. Johnson 31 points, 8 of 11 from the floor, 11 of 14 free throws, 7 assists. Defoe 15, Green 6 of 8 for 14 points. It was 52-24 points in the paint.
Yeah, and that's layups on fast breaks, and you know, and also Darius making a couple of floaters and stuff like that. But
it's also taken away that pick and roll.
Taking away the pick and roll because then it means you have to go to secondary actions, and they haven't been doing much of that. You know, you haven't been doing much of that. They've been so good at at playing at regular season speed. So you know, ultimately, it's what's the adjustment that Caledonia make. Because you know that's what Newcastle are going to do again. They're going to throw Whitfield at Green, so they're going to move Green off the ball a little bit. You know, can somebody else handle the ball? Do you start Bothwell? Do you start 3 guards? You know, do you take? You know, they've got a lot of things to kind of to chew on as a result of that because playoffs are about adjustments, and you know that was kind of a pretty strong first punch that Newcastle threw to the point whereby you can't see them not doing that. you're not playing that way the next week, and then it's up to Caledonia to come up with something else.
Yeah. Let's go to Sunday. Triple header on Sunday. Start off with London Lions 80, Surrey Scorchers 65. Nawaba and Nelson were out for London. No Mohammed under concussion protocol. Robinson still out. And you're thinking, well, how are they going to stay in this game? And then when they got 3 points after the first 6 minutes and it's 16-3, it looked like it was going to be a no contest.
There was a no contest. It was always going to be a no contest. It's not, it's not even close to being a fair fight. And Mohammed is kind of the last nail in that particular coffin. It's half the team they've been playing with all season effectively. You take Wang out of it, you take Mohammed out of it. The new big guy they brought in who did his Achilles, you haven't got Justin Robinson there. You haven't got Jordan Hunt there. That's 5 players. Starting Theo, Theo's been playing limited minutes off the bench most of the year, a little bit more recently. Starting Quinn Cooper, and they're playing at a massive physical disadvantage to London, just a massive physical disadvantage. And London did what they were meant to do. I didn't watch the fourth quarter where apparently they all went a bit pear-shaped. But so what? You're up by 20, 30, 25, 30 points. It's just a mismatch, I'm afraid.
It was 29 that they led by. It was 73-44 going into the fourth quarter. Surrey scored the first 14 points of the fourth quarter. London had 1 free throw in 7.5 minutes before they scored their first field goal. But there wasn't a 20-minute quarter or an 18-minute quarter.
No, I mean, if I was interested enough to see what went wrong, I'd go back and watch it. But it's all about mental focus. The game is done. Interesting, the start of Jordan Taylor. I thought London that kind of sent a message because Philip's been starting. Obviously, Philip got disqualified last week. We might find out what's going to happen to him suspension-wise, maybe in October. It's just awful. The lack of information about this stuff. It's just from a sporting perspective, it is just awful that there's just no mention made, no reference made of the pending proceedings or ongoing proceedings, or whether or not a determination's been made as to any sanction to be imposed, or even if no sanction's been imposed. No, it's not hard, but just no one seems to care, which is, I think, lets down the fans, because ultimately the fans are just as interested in what's going on in relation around the stories around the games, as they are around all the life stories and all the other fluff that we put out in relation to everything else. At some point in time, the competition has to take priority. It's not at the moment, so that kind of frustrates me. Other than that, just to, shrug the shoulders, yawn a bit, same on Friday, and off we go and see London get in the semis.
Arshani 16.7 rebounds, 5 assists. Decker 14 points and 6 rebounds. Grantham 12. Lawrence 17.6 rebounds. Cooper 15. Chorlovinskas and Gooden both had 11. They shot 32% from the floor and 7 of 20 from 3.
They didn't play bad. They just
didn't have enough horses. So Sheffield Sharks 81. Leicester Riders 84. No Cook for the Sharks. No Mackenzie for Leicester. Riders out into the open court early on. Got a 10-point lead, 14-4 early stages of the game.
Yeah, they outplayed the Sheffield starters. Obviously, Delpesh starting instead of Cook. That's a big difference for them. For that group, because that group's used to playing through Cook. Sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully, but it's kind of really quite patterned in the way that they play. And having Delpesh there, who's basically an energy big guy as opposed to a post-up big guy, is quite a substantial difference. And this is why I kind of like, this game was an absolute rinse and repeat of the last game they played in Sheffield 2 weeks ago. And it's kind of why I like the matchup for Leicester against Sheffield as opposed to, for instance, for Newcastle or Caledonia, because Leicester can score, and Sheffield can't guarantee to score. And I thought what happened in the first half of this game in particular was that Sheffield played at Leicester's pace. Part of that was because Cook wasn't on the floor, but part of that was because of the adrenaline of the playoffs. But if they're in the running game and it's a scoring race, well, as I've always said, scoring races favour the home team. That Leicester's only chance of winning is a scoring race. I think. I don't think they're good enough defensively. They're not. I think they blow possessions at times with bad decisions. They shoot early shots.
I thought they were better. They were better defensively in this one than we've seen in certainly in recent games.
Yes, potentially, but I don't know how much of that is impacted by the churn of the Sheffield bench and the way that Sheffield play. And that's the thing, because as I say,
my thing was more that there weren't as many times where somebody beats their man and gets an open layup, which we've seen a lot.
Well, I'd agree with that, but again, what I would say again, it's personnel again, because basically what happened was first 5 minutes, Ramsey and Little Rock struggled. Leicester started like they were ready to play, and Sheffield didn't. So what happened was Sheffield came back with their Sheffield came back with the
Sonny and South Shields.
Not bad in Gates either. No. So Leicester came back with Sheffield came back with the bench players. Now the thing with the bench players is Nixon and Glasgow aren't guys who are beating you to the rim. Nixon and Glasgow are jump shooters.
Yeah.
On that, and it's generally the guard defense is where they've struggled. 1-on-1. The bigs, Walker's going to be big enough to be there. Doe stands up. It's been the help defense, which has been their struggle throughout the season. And I think with Glasgow and Nixon playing and knocking down shots early, they didn't get challenged at the rim as much. They're not going to get attacked to the rim by those guys. But because those, I think at half time, Sheffield had like 35 points off the bench, 11 points off the start.
The stat I've got here in the first quarter was from 14-4, the remainder of Sheffield's points in that quarter were scored by the bench. And they had an 11-2 finish in the quarter, so it's 26-28. So 22 of the 26 points were scored by the bench.
And they also scored 43 points in the last 15 minutes of the first half because they were making shots, and Nixon came in ready to play. What happened then was that but on the other end, Holmes and Thomas were making plays offensively, and they're gifted scorers. Thomas makes some really tough plays. He scores the ball in various different ways when he's on. And what that did was that kind of befuddled Sheffield at half time. What do we do? Well, Sheffield came out at half time with their bench starting. Glasgow and Nixon and Nichols all starting. Which makes sense as far as these are the guys that have been producing, but it also gives you problems down the line because you're taking players away from their comfort level, and particularly guys who are now have to come off the bench, who haven't been coming off the bench for most of the season. And I thought that hurt them. I thought ultimately they're going to have to get a game out of Ramsey to beat Leicester. Ramsey is a good guard. He gets in the passing lanes. He's smart. He's aggressive. He's not what you call an all-out scoring guard, but he got lost in this game a little bit, and because of that, I thought they had some droughts, and you can't have droughts against Leicester because even when you go up early, Leicester are going to score. They're going to come back and score. I know that if Teddy Allen gets a rebound, it's likely he's going to score. If he gets a defensive rebound, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's going to push it off the dribble. That's far more threatening in kind of transition and semi-transition than they are on the half court. And
particularly without McKenzie.
Which means if Sheffield put the ball in the basket, they're going to win. That sounds very, very classic. If they score, they're going to win. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But the point, the knock-on effect is, if they put the ball in the basket, they're picking the ball out of their own basket. Leicester, they're in the half-court game. If they're able to get out and run off missed shots, which is what they need to do, because particularly without McKenzie, but even with McKenzie to a certain degree, a lot of their structure they've abandoned a lot of their structure. They're not getting any scoring in reality from Walker or Shelton inside, and they're not getting much scoring from Washington or Russell, which means that all their scoring is coming from the wing. Now, wing scorers generally score the ball by attacking off the dribble.
Yeah.
And that means needing momentum and needing the ability to get them down the court. And Sheffield's offensive struggles at the beginning of the fourth quarter I thought, pinned them in this game.
So let's ping through to that. 9-0 run by Sheffield in the second quarter to lead 41-32. Leicester had a 9-2 run middle of the third to make it a 2-point game. Start of the fourth quarter, Sheffield back out to 9-quarter, but then Leicester with Washington and Lowell hitting threes scored 14 points in a row to go in front 69-74.
Yeah, I think Washington's three was a transition three,
Mm.
off a semi-transition three. I can't remember
Lawes
Lowell's.
was a cross-court pass to
I
him on the
scored
opposite
past
side.
to a corner. Yeah, made the corner three. And I think Lowell made a heck of a play on an offensive rebound as well, to get on the board, which meant that, suddenly you've got your three wings there, Holmes, Allen, and Law, who are all now impacting the game. And that means that Sheffield are now in a slightly different area in relation to their comfort zone because they haven't got Cook. Del Pescia's basically played out the game, and Leicester are playing with a Doe at the 5. Which means that Sheffield are matching up with Green and Nichols at the 5. But you would say that Leicester are far more comfortable in that environment than Sheffield are because they've had more reps like that.
Yeah.
And what's in comfort levels in the playoffs, and particularly when you're dealing with, you've got a team in Sheffield who've got 4 guards who are all capable of playing minutes. And you've got to decide which of those guards is going to play. Who's going to guard Ted Allen? Is it going to be Rutino? Is it going to be Nichols? Whoever. So I thought they got hamstrung by their surfeit of options almost. And it only takes one run, and as you say, that 14-0 run, a couple of, 2 or 3, the wrong lineups on the court, a couple of missed jump shots, because Nixon stopped making the shots he was making in the first half. Glasgow the same, and then Ramsey was out of rhythm and they weren't able to get anything going to the rim.
So I think the Law play you're talking about was the one that made it 73-79 with 3.5 minutes to go. Pipkins then immediately hit a 3. Lowell nearly had an and one on the next play, but ended up the ball didn't go in, and then he missed both free throws.
Yeah, that's right.
And Nixon then hits the 3 and ties the game at 79-79 with 2:08 to go. So let's go through the last couple of minutes. Holmes drives to the rim, 1:47 to go. He's fouled. He makes 2 free throws, 79-81. Pipkins mid-range misses. Lowell had an open corner 3. That one went in and out. Just inside a minute to go, Nixon at the top of the key tied the game at 81 points apiece. Holmes under pressure in the paint. He misses. And then 25 seconds to go, Nixon top of the key 3. He misses. The ball ricochets off Thomas straight to Pipkins under the basket. Somehow he doesn't score. And then Allen gets the rebound and is fouled.
Yeah, well, you got to make. I mean, for all we talk about the game, it was a toss up at the end. Neither team made the plays offensively that they needed to make in the last 2 minutes, other than the things that we'd seen, which was Holmes getting to the rim and Nixon going to his left and shooting a pull up. Nothing else really went, if I can put it that way, and it became very kind of NBA playoff game. Who's going to make the play? Who's going to keep that discipline? And it's an awful foul. I mean, Pipkins has to make the layup. Okay, you missed the layup, but you cannot foul Teddy Allen. You've given him 2 free points with 25 seconds to go when he's dribbling the basketball in his own key on the rebound. Now, I didn't see a replay of the foul. I'm assuming there was something there. The referee not going to call that unless you see something. And it was just, that kind of discipline, not to do that. That's a losing play. You can't commit that foul there. Not on him. Not there. He's got to run back as fast as you can.
So it's 18.9 seconds to go. He makes both those free throws, 81 to 83. He didn't call a timeout.
That surprised me.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that. And then
surprised me because they had one. Now, I suppose the argument is you might want to say, we're going to have to score anyway. We might want to save it for a kind of advance on the last second if we've got to do it again.
Yeah.
But I wasn't that comfortable with kind of Sheffield's offensive decision making at that point anyway.
Yeah. And they ended up with a 3 from Malik Green, which missed, and then Allen got the rebound and ran some time before they got.
I think what you said was in commentary, or someone said in commentary, was 18% for the season.
Yeah, it wasn't me. It was Josh, and it was probably Rowe.
I think Rowe must have said it was 18% for the season. And Malik Green ends up shooting a 3, and that's like, that they were a little bit discombobulated, a little bit confused at the end. I thought. I didn't really have any confidence that they were going to make a play, that they knew where they were going to make a play. And this is difficult. I mean, ultimately, the team was run by Nixon because Nixon showed up to play. So he ended up being the guy in the team. He hasn't really been the guy at the end he's been playing with Ramsey normally, as opposed to having the kind of the basketball in his hands as much as he did. And it's just repetition. And ultimately, the worst thing for Sheffield is that in the last 2 minutes, Leicester didn't make a field goal and they still beat.
Yeah.
You know, that can't happen. Not on your phone. That's just not making enough good decisions. You know, you got the
I
stops.
think it was the last 3:30 they didn't make a field goal.
And that was from a tie game situation or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't make and they didn't make a field goal and they beat you from the foul line in the pen. I'm not even, you know.
So it was a tie game with 2 minutes to go. It's
Yeah.
73-79 with 3:30 to go.
Right.
And then it was 79-79 with 2:08 to go. And Leicester's only scores in that time was Holmes 2 free throws, Allen 2 free throws, Allen 1 free throw.
Yeah, you just gave them the game.
Mm.
You know, yeah, you miss a layup. That's not great. But you're giving them 3 points. 3 points just can't happen. Not in that close a game. That's a shout out for the best of 3 series, because that game would have been far duller if it was just about whether someone was winning by 2 points or 3 points for the second leg.
Yeah. Or a tie.
Or tie, yeah.
Nixon 25 points, Pipkins 14 points and 5 assists, Glasgow 11. They had 59 bench points. Green with 7 was the top scorer of the starters. Thomas 9 of 12, 24 points and 8 rebounds. Holmes 21 points and 6 rebounds. Allen 1 for 8 for 3, 17 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Leicester was 6 of 26 for 3.
Yeah, I mean, he forced a few of their threes. I mean, without McKenzie, they do have issues with shot creation at times, so probably a little bit more justifiable with the shots that he's putting up. But, you know, he doesn't have a filter in relation to degree of difficulty.
No.
That's because he's such a good shooter. But he seemed relatively connected to this game. And, you know, and as I say, you know, there's nobody in the league I'd want more on the foul line to knock him down to win the game. But
maybe McKenzie.
Maybe McKenzie. No, I don't know. Alan is an incredible shooter. You know, I mean, he's an incredible shooter because he shoots the ball so well, despite not really having the physical tools to get his shot off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, whereas McKenzie can get to his spots and rise up and shoot it, he's mechanical in everything he does. Alan is the opposite, which means that you can't, you know,
one's in the textbook and one is not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it means that, you know, he's made his life out of cheap points, and, you know, as being a scorer. So he also well on that team anyway. You wouldn't want anybody apart from Alan to shoot.
Well, that's the thing, is he's 1 for 8 for 3 and still has 17 points.
Yeah. So you know, I mean, Sheffield let one go. I mean, but I'd be probably fair to say that in the way that they played all season, missing Cook at that end is as much as missing McKenzie at the other end. To be honest, because, you know, they don't have Adekoya anymore to kind of fill that gap either and be that kind of that stretch 5 who knows how to do it. So you're left with Breen and Nichols doing it, if you know, and that's hard to do that in the playoffs. And, you know, the game was basically centerless because Shelton didn't play much and Walker was a body, but he, you know, it wasn't really impactful. So I don't think it's over. But what you said about Sheffield not getting to the rim, I think was pretty important, and I think that was down to personnel, who was there and who wasn't. So we'll see where it goes in the second leg.
We will. And then the final game, Cheshire Phoenix 91, Bristol 90. EJ Stevens back for Phoenix. Shagwa, the first 8 points of the game, but got a couple of early fouls. And then Jack Rideau, Jack Holden hit threes, 14-2 run. They're out to 24-11.
Yes, that spirit ability showed up again, didn't it? The first 3 quarters, I was watching this game thinking, do Bristol want to win this game? They went back about 18 months into their inbound disasters. I think probably at least 3 or 4 times Cheshire showed a bit of token pressure on the inbounds, and they're throwing the ball up court and they're throwing it away. And like on one occasion, I just looked across at Andreas, who was kind of sat there with his hands like this. You know, it just showed no poise at all in relation to it. And you can't get into a running match with Cheshire. You don't need, you know, you're going to be, to a certain degree, taking the air out of the basketball a little bit, but you cannot let them get out in transition, because in the half court, you've got a shot at beating them in the transition. It becomes, you know, virtually impossible, because Rye and Kristen and Jack and obviously Rideau, they're flying up and down the court. And then they've got the trailers who are going to come and shoot the ball. And so, yeah, I didn't think Bristol were on it at all to start with. Big Green, Brad Green struggled with the matchup. He struggled with that matchup before. Remember a game down at Bristol where he gave up a few threes to Skylar White, which was kind of the turning point in that game. And yeah, they just didn't look on it. And Cheshire, but the thing with Cheshire is Cheshire's spurt ability is great going forward, upwards, but they can also de-spurt.
So White hadn't had a look in the first 15 minutes. Then he hit back-to-back threes. Rideau hit another one. White again. 56-41. Still 2 minutes from halftime, and they had 56.
Yeah, and the backup, the two that he hit were open. You know, they were kind of token challenges again, and they made the mistake of not because I think it was a switch. It was the guards were switching onto him, and you know, I think Olliston on one of them. And you can't do it. You know, he's going to shoot the basketball, so just a simple closeout isn't going to work.
Lucas went out with an ankle injury in the first half, tried to come back in the second, but didn't last very long. It was hard to see how Bristol were going to get back into it. 14 minutes to go, 73-55. But then Ollison started making some shots. Smith hit a couple of threes, and they went 17 unanswered points over 8 minutes as well. 8 minutes without scoring, Cheshire, and
Yeah,
it's
I thought
73-72.
I thought Smith and Thomas Edwards made a difference. You know, they made them more physical, made them gave them a bit of solidity. They didn't turn the ball over as much, and obviously Cheshire can't run if they're picking the ball out of the basket. And Cheshire have droughts. I mean, they do. You know, they're a team which has become, you know, Bristol dealt very well with Rye's physicality in this game. You know, Rye struggled to score the ball at the rim, which is normally kind of Cheshire's get out clause if we're struggling to throw the ball at him. And Bristol really did a good job of kind of, you know, with their physical defenders, Thomas Edwards, Smith inside, of living up to that physicality challenge and making them make tough shots. And then they're very much Rideau dependent, and you know they played Rideau quite well as well. So that led to the drought, and the drought led to Bristol making some shots, and then Keedy Johnson also became involved in toward the end of the game.
So Cheshire had 6 in a row to respond to that 17-0 run. Then Johnson scored 6 free throws to make it 81-78 with 100 seconds to go. Chargois, by the way, hobbled out with an ankle injury as well, 2.5 minutes from the end of the game. 1:23 to go. White, corner 3, 84-78. Big shot that.
That was the chess game, wasn't it? Because Brad Green had been out of the game for a long time. And they brought him back in. It was an absolute cardinal sin. You know, basically, Rideau drove to his right, White's in the corner. You know, Green helped from what we call help from the strong side. You don't help from a strong side shooter. So you don't help from the shooter who's on the same side. And if that strong side shooter is Skylar White, you know, Green got caught in the middle of nowhere. He didn't defend Rideau. He didn't defend White. Rideau was going to have to shoot a tough shot with whoever it was draped all over him. But by not getting out there and defending White, and by having that matchup of the big guy on the shooter, they gave White the space, and then that's the game. You know that whether I know he made the next one, but that shot was the game because you know if they get a stop, then it becomes anybody's basketball game, and you cannot give up a strong side three. To that matchup there just scared me. You know, and I know you're putting Brad Green in to see if he can get something at the other end, but that matchup, you know, as a coach, would have absolutely scared me. Leaving that there, and it frustrates me as well that Brad Green, who hasn't played that much, isn't connected enough to realize what he has to do there, which is you do not allow White to catch the ball. And if Rideau beats you 4-on-4, that's fine. You know, because if you're coming in to guard that guy, then you have to guard that guy. You're not coming in to help and grab a rebound. You're coming to do something outside of your skill set, your normal skill set. You've still got to do it.
Yeah. Ollison then went quickly down the middle, 1:15 to go, 84-80. 57.6. Rideau to the rim, probably should have scored, didn't score, but was Green's 5th foul. He made 2 free throws, 86-80. I must be honest, bringing Smith back in was a good thing, I thought, in that situation. 44.2 seconds to go. They sagged off Johnson, almost sort of baiting him into shooting a 3, which he did, and he made. 86-83. And then 20.9 seconds to go. White on the pick and pop. There didn't seem to be much room room for him to make the three, but he made it
Oh,
anyway.
he made a really tough shot. I mean, if you were really criticizing the defender, you would say he was ended up on the wrong side of him. You want to basically be on the left side of him because he wants to put his shoulder into you and fade away and step back to his left to shoot it. So if you're on the other side of him, you make him go to his right, it becomes a shot that he basically never shoots. But even then, it was a really tough shot. You'd probably say it was it was properly defended. It wasn't an absolute. It wasn't the way that I would want to defend him, because I say I would always want to be up on the other side of him. But sometimes he can't get there. And he just made a really tough shot. But he made that one because he made the one before.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the reality of it. If you get players like that, Skylar White in a rhythm, and he's comfortable, then he does it. So yeah, that was a playoff shot. But playoffs about matchups, all about matchups.
13.8 seconds to go. Ollison is fouled. He makes 2 free throws, 89-85. And then had we gone back to aggregate here, because the end of this game was played like an aggregate game. I couldn't work it out. Timeout, advance the ball. There was no foul on White. He's just standing there with the ball. And obviously the shot clock is off, so they could just run it down to the buzzer if they want. He then turns his head. He could have just stood there. He turned his head, put the ball on the floor. Johnson came from behind, stole the ball from him, drives to the rim, and he's fouled.
I don't know if they're trying to bait him. Maybe they were. Maybe, the argument is, well, we'll foul him. He's probably going to make 1 or 2. We're down 5. So let's see if we can bait him into a steal. And that's what they kind of did, because almost he was it's a natural kind of thing for a player who's expecting a foul. You turn your back on the opposition to invite them to kind of reach in and foul you.
Yeah.
Stand up and put the ball in front of them when you want to foul. You kind of turn to protect themselves because you're anticipating the reach. And that's kind of what he did. And then he felt the need to dribble, which was probably a mistake.
Yeah.
And Johnson's a gamer. Johnson plays at the end of games very well, in a few of the games. So Johnson's alive. He gets a layup, and that gives him a half a prayer, doesn't it?
So 4.9 seconds to go. He makes both free throws. It's a 2-point game, 89-87. Timeout, advance the ball. It's into White. They did foul him this time. 3.2 seconds left. He makes both of those free throws, 91-87. Timeout, advance. Took too long. Ollison shot from miles out. 3 goes in, but the buzzer's already gone. So it's a 1-point game. That would have been a great finish if you were on aggregate from where they were.
Yeah, it would have been still a good finish anyway. I mean, the game was done anyway before that play. I mean, the only thing you would possibly say, is to Ollison, the only way you're going to actually get anything is actually to get your body right into the defender and try and chuck up a Hail Mary shot, which would then, as opposed to a normal jump shot, which maybe wouldn't be used to, and you might get some kind of residual contact from having your body in there to start with.
Yeah.
Get a foul, it's always kind of tough. Or you do what Kyle Lowry did in the Sixers game last night, and try and draw a foul with the ball without the ball before the ball comes in. Something like that. But it was an offensive. He tried, an offensive defensive player ran straight through him. But it's tough. I mean, the game's basically done then, but from history, I can tell you, right? The most rated, the most valuable I ever got in games is when we were up 4 with less than 10 seconds to go, and you were yelling, "Don't foul!"
Yeah.
Literally, don't foul, just to make sure that they all, because you don't trust any of them not to foul.
Yeah.
Now he had a timeout, so you got a timeout to say that. But it's kind of one of those moments as coach, foul, whatever. It's like when you're up 3, it's like defend the 3-point line. Do not step inside the 3-point line. If they throw something behind you, we're fine. And like, just do not. It's like on the Skylar White closeouts. Tevin Ollison's closing out Skylar White as if he's a normal player. I.e., if I run out too fast to him, he'll dribble past me.
Yeah,
he isn't going to dribble past you. And if he does, that's fine, because you've got time for somebody else to get past. So, as they say in America, KYP, as JT says, know your personnel. You've got to be able to trust your personnel. And and Cheshire just kind of got away with one. They're still a little bit fragile. But Bristol, they turned the ball over 3 or 4 times off inbounds. They made some dumb plays. And then the playoffs, little things matter, and they didn't make enough of the little plays.
Rideau, 22 points, 11 assists. White, 20 points, 6 of 9, all 3-pointers.
Yeah.
6 rebounds. Chargois, 16 points and 6 rebounds in 16 minutes. Ollison, 25. Johnson, 25 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Bradley, 9. Green, 1 shot in 14 minutes. He was in foul trouble all the way through.
And that's the thing, that was the question about going back to him at the end. The guy's not in any form of rhythm at all in the game. So 2.5 minutes to go. Do you go back with him where he's had no impact on the basketball game? He's been in foul trouble. He's played limited minutes, and you're basically throwing him into the kind of the most important 2 minutes of the game. That comes as to how much you trust your player to be able to get over that. In this occasion, it didn't work.
Most likely to go to 3 games?
Oh, Newcastle, Caledonia.
Newcastle, I'll go.
Oh yeah,
Leicester, Sheffield.
absolutely. That's on the basis of what I've seen from Newcastle all season, which is one game, one good game, one impressive performance, followed by a week on the sauce. I'm not saying not literally. I'm talking about a week thinking how good we are and then not ready. So I would suggest that Caledonia will bounce back.
I would go with Leicester, Sheffield on the basis that Caledonia's issues were related to the week before.
Yeah, that might be right.
I don't know, but I could see both of them going to 3. To be fair,
but if Mackenzie comes back for Leicester, then in that gym, motivated, and if they get, they got enough guys. All they've got to do is have one of those nights where they make about 11 or 12 threes.
Okay, so least likely to go to 3 that isn't London, Surrey.
Oh right. A lot of it depends on Cork. If Cork remains hurt, I would say that I think Leicester will win.
Okay.
I'm not sure about Bristol and Cheshire. Cork is healthy. Different, probably Bristol and Cheshire. But I'm not. The problem with reading too much into one game is it's awful. It's awful.
Particularly as it's not Friday, Sunday.
Exactly.
It's a whole week to relook at everything.
I know that. I'm not sure I like that. I thought from my view, it should, play the first 2 games the first weekend and then have the 3rd game midweek and then play the next, if necessary, and then play the next round the following weekend, and get some rhythm into it. I don't like the idea, this having a week off between playoff games and then I just think it defeats the purpose of it. Maybe a scheduling thing, obviously, and you don't want to play, there's only so many slots and you want to have 2 days between games and all that stuff. But in Newcastle, obviously, don't want to play their home game on a Sunday because they don't play on Sundays at home and that type of stuff.
The issue with it is you end up with the anomaly of if Leicester Sheffield does go to 3 games, they play. I think it's 6 o'clock on Saturday or 6:15 or something like that on Saturday, and then 3 o'clock on Sunday.
That's just nuts, isn't it? I didn't know that. That's just nuts. I'm sorry. That's just it. It impacts the credibility of the competition. The whole they've really pushed it out this year in relation to we don't want all these games played at the same time. We want everything to be able to be covered, all of that stuff. Okay. Yeah, at the time. So we've had lots of games on Thursday nights in front of very few people at times. But at the time when when the games really need to have their own kind of spot and their own spacing, and that in order to build the momentum of a series, which is what the NBA is all about. It's what succeeds in the NBA. If you're gonna have a series, you build momentum over it. You don't let things die. They play every couple of days. We're having 3 games on Friday night where I can only watch 1. And I watched 2, but one in the gym because I'm in the gym, and then potentially a Friday, a Saturday, Sunday, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock situation.
I suppose it's the difference of scheduling for a long run at it versus scheduling it a week's notice, isn't it? 2 weeks notice.
It is, but at the end of the day, if you've made people play on Thursday nights all season. you know, you can't have it both ways. You know, that's what I suppose that's what I'm saying. It's an inconsistent approach.
Mm.
And I think at times it's hurt the league during the season because it's hurt the product during on those kind of Thursday night games. And I think it hurts the league a little bit now because you've got three teams playing on Friday, and because teams want kind of space between the games. You play on Friday, Sunday, and then Leicester get the Saturday. Leicester and Sheffield potentially get the Saturday, Sunday slot.
Mm.
And there's no way in the world it is appropriate for teams to play each other twice in less than 24-hour gap.
Mm.
The 24-hour gap is beyond suboptimal. It's awful. But less than 24 hours, by the time you've worn down, you've gone to sleep, you're on the bus to go to the next game. It's no way of promoting your product. It's no way of protecting the athletes. It's just wrong. So I didn't know it was going to happen. But I do think it's indicative of the entire year, which, as I say, I've said previously, being full of good ideas and poor execution. And there's always reasons for that poor execution. But I remain to be convinced that some of those reasons aren't lack of forethought.
Well, we will see.
Yeah.
I think we will see whether it goes to 3 and how it impacts on the output if it does. But I think we've got to the end. There's no league table to read through.
No, nothing.
We can
No,
all go
no
off
real historical records, is it? Because we don't do best of three since we're about 25 years.
Well, I can give you some historical records
No,
if you
no,
want.
don't.
I've got them at my fingertips. I'll randomly spurt things out on air. This week I was talking about Leicester Man United. I was talking about Thames Valley Derby. I was talking about Worthing winning from 7th seed.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
All these sorts of things just randomly pop out. You never know
yeah.
why
Yeah,
or
well,
where.
we'll save it for the broadcaster.
Okay,
Everyone,
yeah.
shall we? We don't.
Yeah.
But no, there's nothing. We try and link them on this stuff to what's happened, don't we? And there's nothing to link to
Mm.
at this point. No doubt, if next week, if like seeds 5, 6, and 7 have win, no doubt you'll have a stat about that.
Yes, well, I'm sure
Yeah,
I
I'm
will.
sure you will,
I'm
but
sure I
we'll
will.
not know until then. What are you doing
Till I
Sunday?
look it up. It depends on what games go to. How many games go to Sunday is the answer.
Okay.
Don't know yet. I have provisionally booked in for Sunday, but it might be 2 games, might be 1 game, might not.
Maybe
Who
any.
knows?
Okay. Oh well, we'll see what happens. Game 3 is always fun.
Mm.
Okay, cool.
Right, let's get off to the football.
Yeah.
Enjoy your week, people, and we'll be back at some point next week to do it all over again. But for now, goodbye.
Bye, guys.